Hey guys, I'm noticing I cannot sleep, so I decided to do a video. I actually started trying to use Finch. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a kind of a self-help app type thing, a self-care app. Basically, it's one of those things that you set up like little goals, and it has a pet cartoon bird thing. As I hit those goals for the day, and my bird not only gets bigger, like right now, I just barely started this weekend, so my bird's still not quite a toddler yet. Why a bird would be a toddler, it's not usually the way that's referred to, but hey. Um, and you also get these points that you can turn in for like outfits and stuff for your bird. I think they call it a burb, BIRB. For me, but I think that's what they call it on there rather than a bird. But hey, whatever. For me, it probably would have been better if they'd like done, I don't know, a unicorn or a dragon, or heck, even a raptor rather than a cutesy little bird. But it is what it is. I only had one option. I just got to choose its color. I chose kind of a mint green. It just was cuter than the rest for that bird for me. But anyway, so I've been trying to do those goals. Starting tomorrow, I've actually got the daily video back on for the goals as well. I think actually doing that is probably part of the reason I can't sleep right now, because I'm gonna be kind of as honest with you as I can right now, but I've been bad off. Um, really, since like the beginning of 2024, I don't recognize myself anymore. I'm not the same person I was then. Um, at, at the beginning of 2024, I could visualize my future, what my life was going to be. I had the plan. Everything was all right, and then just one after another, it all fell apart, and I no longer see a future. And I'm really trying to fight that. And so I do have been diagnosed in the past. I've struggled with it all my life. I have um, depression, anxiety, and OCD. And no, it's not the cleaning OCD that people always imagine. It's a lot more of a complicated disease than that. Disorder, not disease. That's the difference, really. But it's much more complicated than that in general. And mine. Hi, hey, buddy. Mine kind of. It's very pattern oriented, but when I'm not doing the behaviors that the OCD tells me to, how do I put this? When I'm triggered with something, because my main thing is actually depression. The others are comorbidities. And all these things that have happened this last year have been huge triggers. And one of those in a year's time would be a huge trigger, and I've had several things happen. But have been huge triggers for my depression, and the OCD kicks in. I get all these thoughts, and I don't know, maybe they're intrusive thoughts. I don't know what to even call them, but it's this constant, and you can tell my speech is even off a little bit. There are these constant thoughts that are just circling in my head, and there's a million of them. And it's just everything. They're not even necessarily all negative, although a lot of them are. but it's so hard to focus on a single one. And I have these OCD, and the OCD behaviors that I've developed. I started kind of doing these behaviors that I will fall more into it because I mean I always have the urges to do these things, but I'll fall more into it, and most of them are harmless, really, overall. But I'll fall more into it when I have all these thoughts running around, which I currently have going on right now. But when I have all those thoughts, because somehow it kind of centers the brain and it stops the thoughts from being so confuddled. I can think again. It helps, which sounds weird because it isn't in and of itself. It's a disorder, but it does seem to help those thoughts, and I know it's kind of partially the cause of those. I know, but it's complicated. But anyway, so when I'm not performing those behaviors, those thoughts become overwhelming. When I'm kind of, and right now with all those triggers, those thoughts are very bad. I mean, just so overwhelming, and I can't function very well. I mean, I still go to work and everything. For some reason, I've always been high functioning in that way. I will still go to work, do the absolute base necessity. But I get home and I start performing those. And this isn't every day. There are good days and there are bad days. But they become more frequent than not. I start performing those behaviors and I can't pull out of it. Like this weekend, before I kind of went, whoa, I gotta fix this. I spent about 36 hours performing this one behavior that's, like I said, harmless, doesn't hurt anyone, but I didn't get anything else done. I didn't sleep. I just kept doing this certain thing, and so my house is a worse mess than usual. I mean, I did manage to get some laundry done today, and like a few minor things, the absolute basics, but it's still a bloody mess. You'll see that tomorrow's video. And hopefully you'll start seeing improvements too. I'm hoping that I can have this Finch kind of help. But so today I was using the Finch app, but I did manage to get it dressed, like I said, a cute little outfit. But one of the way I'm doing the goals is I started out pretty small on making the goals, but I have actually, one of my big goals is to reduce the amount time I'm spending on these behaviors. So I'm setting a time limit, and if I hit these time limit, like right now, it's a 2-hour time limit with a half an hour break between each hour, which still seems like a lot of time to be doing just one thing that's so pointless, but it makes no sense to anyone but me. But I have to kind of start and not overwhelm myself, so there's that. But I did that, and I succeeded, and I didn't put a lot of goals on. That was basically it, other than the ones that it already has on there automatically on its own. What was that, buddy? But anyway, yeah, my cat's right next to me. But where was I going with this? I said my thoughts are befuddled. But yeah, okay, so I did that. And but those thoughts have been overwhelming me. And now they're just so buzzy that I can't sleep. So I'm hoping that I can kind of manage this. I know I need to get into therapy and everything, but there's this issue. Mental health is such a screwed up thing because one of the very, very, very common one, and probably the most common things that can happen that's a trigger is financial difficulties. when you have financial difficulties, you cannot afford therapy. And a lot of your other triggers, like the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of having to move and stuff, these are all things that actually end up causing financial difficulties, even though they're own most of the time for most people. When you really need the help, you can't afford the help a lot of times. Um, I was in therapy at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2024, and really didn't even need it. And now that I need it, I can't afford it. I even had to wean off. I was on meds, and I had to talk to the doctor and say I just got to wean off them because I can't afford to come in and see you. And my jeez, I like I said, this is bad, but my prescriptions won't renew, and I can't think of the word for it right now because there's so much going on here, but it won't allow me to get more until I've gone in to see him, and I can't afford to go in and see him. And because of the things with the job, I got laid off back in June. I had that other job, but right before I was supposed to get my medical insurance, they let me go. Now I'm in this job. I haven't got medical insurance for it yet. I don't have insurance and I don't have money. And so I just can't afford it. So I had to tell him, I had to be like, you gotta help me wean off because I can't afford to go and see you. And he argued with me, but I was like, I literally cannot afford it. It's either you help me wean off of this, tell me what I'm supposed to do as far as weaning off, or I'll just stop when it's time to renew this. And so I'm weaned off, and I know that's not helping. But anyway, I'm trying this Finch app to try to help. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. My other coping mechanisms that I used to do that were therapy approved, I don't have the supplies for and can't afford the supplies, like my sculpting that I used to do, or I just can't get my brain to focus enough, and so I end up falling back into this behavioral pattern that isn't good. So it is fine on a short-term thing. I can do it for a little bit, and it actually is helpful, but I become so obsessive over it, and that's the problem. So you're such a sweet boy. So yeah, but videos are back on as a goal. I might have to increase my goals. Maybe if I have enough goals, yes, maybe that will become my obsession and will. I know I should be trying to stay away from obsessions, but I don't know. I literally cannot sleep. I can't think. I can barely speak. I can't form coherent sentences well, obviously. Anyway, I hate the human brain. Ah. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you, maybe getting it out. Because honestly, he don't care. The other cats are napping somewhere else, which I'm jealous of. Maybe getting it out will allow me to sleep. Because right now, I'm supposed to wake up in 5 hours. I've been trying to sleep for a while. I don't think I have any like nighttime pills or anything that I can take to help. Like Tylenol PM or anything, so that's not gonna work. I don't have any milk. Can't warm that up. I don't know. But we'll see. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.